Well, a zero-sum game simply means that the net result is going to be a wash. So whatever one side gains, the other side loses, and vice versa. So in the end, nobody ends up ahead. You just end up spinning your wheels. Like that's quite literally the definition of a zero-sum game. So naturally, that's going to prompt the question, is trading itself just a zero-sum game? Like, are we just spinning our wheels where we're not going to make any progress? And in the end, we're just going to be left basically at net zero, less whatever commissions we paid. And so that's obviously not a scenario that we want to be in, but this is a fair question that we need to ask. And so what's interesting about the answer, it's not so simple for reasons you guys both brought up, which is really, really great. It's not a simple yes and no. There are elements of yes and there are elements of no. So that's what I want to talk about here this morning. So Josh, go ahead and get us going on the next slide. Let's talk about the first one that literally by definition has to be true. So when I look at a trade, specifically options at the contract level, so at the contract level, you have the short side, you have the long side, you have the seller, you have the buyer. Whatever one side gains, the other side loses, and vice versa. That is quite literally the definition of an options contract. And so if you're only looking at this at the individual trade level, the micro level, the gains and the losses are going to offset at the contract level. And thus, every independent trade looked at from this context must be a zero-sum game. What do you guys think about this?
If we're only looking at the option contract and ignoring that it's a derivative of the underlying, then I think at that microstructure, I would have to agree with you. If we have very few participants, that probably reinforces it.
If you're only going to let me eat hamburger, I'm going to say hamburger is the best meat in the entire world.
So contract level, we're all in agreement, right? Okay, zero-sum game at the contract level, that makes sense. Again, kind of structurally by definition, okay, that's fine. But as you guys kind of alluded to when I kind of kicked it off, wanting to know where you guys were at, it goes a lot deeper than that. Like when you start thinking about, what are you doing over time? What are you doing strategically to adjust? Ryan, like what you were saying, who's on the other side of the trade? Is it an independent trade? Is it part of a spread? Like all these things are very, very important. So Josh, bring us back to the slides. But there's another even more fundamental aspect of this over time that I think really addresses the spirit of the question that oftentimes the questioner has when they say, hey, is trading just a zero-sum game over time? Basically meaning, can I make money as an active trader? That's what people really want to know. When they're asking that type of question, that's where they're trying to go. And so I thought, man, let's go straight to the source here and let's start talking about P&L and let's start talking about probabilities.
Okay.
So let's say you have a $1 wide vertical, just as an illustration. You collect 1/3 the width of the strikes. This is very textbook, very cookie cutter for what we've been talking about for many, many years. If I have a $1 wide vertical, I collect 33 cents. I have 33 cents of profit potential. I have 67 cents of risk on the trade. Based on theoretical pricing, the way that the probabilities are going to line up for that trade is my pop is going to be about 67%. It's essentially going to be the inverse of the credit that I collect. And so when you look at that on a per trade basis, right, 67% times the 33 cents that I make minus 33% times the 67 cents that I would lose, in the end, I'm going to net out to zero. But gentlemen, we know that this is not the end of the story, is it not?
No, you're 100% correct.
Story's not over, Jim.
Story's not over. Although the math is right, the story's not over.
The math is right, but it's incomplete. Why is it incomplete?
Right.
So why is it incomplete?
Because it's not a binary option where you can trade. You could trade anytime you want in here. You can get in, out, improve, or otherwise remove your risk or do something else. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go with this.
That's right. And Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, it's not a binary option. You have the freedom to kind of find, where's your edge, I guess, I suppose. You're probably not going to sit in it for the entire 33 cents.
Correct. Right. When you start bringing in things like managing early, you start bringing in things like managing at some percentage of profit target, like that brings in all kinds of strategic advantages that I'm not even going to get into necessarily. Again, I mean, what we talked about in terms of other side of the trade, in terms of liquidity and activity and rolling and things like that, those are all kind of layers on top of this that I'm not even going to address. I'm actually just going to go one base layer deep this morning. So Josh, go on the next slide. Structurally, there is a quote unquote edge that's built into this that doesn't even require any action on our part. And it's essentially what we all know to be true. Over time, implied volatility has been shown to be greater than realized volatility on average. Now, it doesn't mean it's a guarantee. It doesn't mean it's a promise. It doesn't mean it's always going to work out when you need it to work out. But it does mean that on average, this is what we have seen over and over and over again. So what that means in English, in practical terms, the probabilities are not going to map what they should be theoretically. The actual pops that you experience are going to be better than what the theoretical pops are suggesting, because options are priced based off of IV. But if RV, the actual volatility that materializes, is below that, then it's as if you actually were overcompensated on entry for the options that you did sell. So in this example, my 33 cents and my 67 cents are not going to be 67.33. They're actually going to be maybe 70.30 or maybe 69.31 or what have you. There's only going to be a small edge, especially with something like defined risk. But now you see in the end, it doesn't net out to zero. It actually nets out to a small winner over time. And that's what we're hanging our hats on. And again, this is with defined risk. I mean, defined risk, the advantages and the benefits are going to be quite muted relative to undefined risk, because that's when you have the unfiltered exposure to the Greeks and the unfiltered exposure to this IV-RV differential. But of course, for every gimme, there's a gotcha. You're also taking on unlimited risk. You're also taking on undefined risk. So you've got to have the adjustments ready. You've got to have, your skills sharpened, because you're playing a much different game at that point. But over time, statistically, that is going to be where you're going to essentially realize the greatest level of effectiveness.